Hey guys, how are we? Welcome back to the Boxing Deep Dive YouTube channel. And we haven't done anything on a Wednesday night for a while. Been away, of course, and there's been fight nights. I know there actually is one tonight, so I appreciate anyone that does join in. Of course, it's the Ace Boxing Show in Brisbane. But as I said, we haven't done this for quite some time, and I know the timing is a little bit askew, I suppose. There's some big fights coming up. Of course, we've got George Kambosos and Andrew Maloney both in fights, world title fights this weekend. Of course, we've got Tim Tszyu coming up as well, Jai Pataya coming up, Liam Paro coming up. So there's some big fights out there. I think there's a few more anyway. Look, it's always a risky proposition to do these ratings. Everyone has their own opinions, and that's cool. Everyone has a way of deciding who's in the top 10 and what criteria, whether it be activity, whether it be quality of opposition, whether it be the titles that they actually win. All these different things come into it. So again, this is just my opinion of who are the top 10 pound for pound fighters, both here in Australia and globally. So as I said, it's a little bit hard sometimes to get it right. As I said, everyone's got different criteria, but we'll see how we go tonight anyway. So what we're going to do, feel free to put any comments or questions or whatever it might be in the chat there too, guys. This is the reason why I do go live to do this. So put it in there. I'll bring the comments up. I think I've got it up there. There we go. A couple in there. D-Style Boxing. Wow, mate. Very interested to see what you think of my pound for pound list. I know you probably won't know or probably comment too much on the Australian scene. But just check. All right, okay. Just checking my sound. But I know when it comes to the world scene, mate, you'll have plenty to say there. Batman Boxing in there as well. How are you there, mate? Apologies for that too. It's just over my little screenshot there. Great performance from Canelo and in a way, two legends and very special fighters. Let's enjoy them while they're around. D-Style, Sam Goodman is number one pound for pound in Australia. And soon, number one pound for pound. Are you taking the piss on it there, D-Style? Look, I did see your post on, I think it was X, Twitter, whatever it was today. I don't really get on there much, but I was bored and just happened to scroll through. And I see that you've had a little bit to say. I think there's a hashtag save Sam Goodman. So, look, mate, to be honest with you, I can't blame you with that performance the other night. How good was it? And I did say in my little review after that, I think Sam Goodman would have had a lump in his throat when he got up there and had to say that he was looking forward to fighting in a way because I certainly wouldn't be if I was him. But great to have you along anyway, mate. I'm not quite sure what time it is in the morning over there. Let's have a quick look. I'm assuming it is about 5 o'clock in the morning. So, mate, you are a better person than me if that is the case and you're up and about. Batman again, fight since 2021, in a way 7, Canelo 8, Usyk 4, Crawford 3. Yeah, does that play a factor with you, Batman? I would think it has to be considered if you're breaking it down and it's line ball between two fighters. I think the frequency does come into it. Having said that, I've probably contradicted myself in my list tonight. But anyway, we'll see how we go. David says, I think activity needs to play a role in this. Yeah, it does. Look, I think if you haven't fought for, let's say, 12 months, if it's beyond 12 months, geez, D-Style, 3 a.m. in El Paso, Texas. I'm actually going to be in Texas at the end of the year, D-Style. I'm not sure whether I told you that. I'm going to be in Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston. So just getting around there. But yeah, look, I think if it's a year, I think that's probably fair enough. Outside of a year, I think it's a bit of open slather with things. And you probably look at, well, arguably the best fighter in the world, and I won't reveal too much at the moment, but say Terence Crawford hasn't fought regularly. I think you said it yourself there, Batman. There hasn't fought since, I think, July last year. So we're pushing a year. It's been 10 months. By the time he fights, it will be a year. So lots of things come into consideration for it. Once I go through, I'll start from 10 and go down to 1. Once I get to the bottom of that, I'll bring up the complete list, and then you can let me have it. I'll explain my choices, and then it's open season after that. Who we got there? Anthony Taduri. How are you, Anthony? Sorry you can't see that comment there too well there, guys, but I'll read it out. You must be pumped for Lomachenko. Kambosos just around the corner. Perth needs more world-class boxing events like this. Well, stay tuned, Anthony, because I think Perth have entered the big events stadium, or whatever you want to call it, the arena. And the word is that they're going to be putting their hand up for a lot more events. I have had the UFC. I think it's back there again at the end of this year, I think. They've had WWE now into boxing. So who knows? I think they're starting to realise when they put these big events on, people come. And I know they always stick to the football and concerts and all that sort of stuff, but they don't realise what they can actually get to the city. And I think Brisbane probably paved the way back in 2017 when Jeff Horn and Manny Pacquiao, Dean Lonigan got that fight over the line, got a hell of a lot of funding out of that, paid for money to get here, and it was an absolute bonanza as far as financial return to the state. So we won't go into too much of that tonight, of course, because we've got the top 10s to get through. Batman, we'll keep going through the comments as we go, guys, and we'll get started. All right, so that offensive display from Inouye was some of the craziest things I've seen. The showboating was also amazing. He's unbelievable in terms of talent. Yeah, he has. Look, mate, I can't argue with anything that you have to say there. Look, the only flaw I probably had was that when he gets excited, he can leave himself exposed. But geez, good luck in trying to crack that egg, I suppose, if you want to say it, because a lot easier said than done. And with Sam Goodman, I think he would have went home after that fight thinking, geez, why did this guy have to be in my division? Any other division would have been great. Why does he have to be in my division? So, and he did cop a little bit of flack, didn't he? In a way, did for actually, if it is the case of choosing Goodman. It hasn't been made official yet, but we'll see what what the reaction is to that. All right, Matty, we'll get a few more comments in before we get into it. Inouye, number one for sure. Not as skillful as Crawford, but much more entertaining. Does entertaining come into it? I'm not sure. I'll fully explain myself as we go. But is entertaining really a criteria? I don't know. Look, as I said, everyone's got their own way of rating things. Activity matters. Easier to stay unbeaten. When you don't fight as often. All these guys are great fighters. I respect to all of them. D-Style, 1-0 Pataya, 2 Zoo. After that, got no clue. Okay. Batman, I think Inouye is more skilled. Watch back the Aegis and his I can never pronounce that name. You know what I'm talking about. Inouye is more talented, just my opinion. All right, well, let's see how we go. Let's start with the Australian scene. And again, feel free to put your comments and everything in there and questions, and no insults, please. It's just my opinion, guys. If you want your own show to do this, feel free to do it. But while it's here, let's keep it respectful. Talk amongst yourselves, of course, and it's just a discussion. Look, I personally don't like the idea of top 10s. Contradicting myself by doing it here, of course, but because it's just an opinion. It's like asking someone, who are the 10 greatest bands of all time. It's everyone's taste, I suppose. So maybe a little bit different because you can point the facts with records, but everyone's just a little bit different, aren't they? All right, so let's start with the Australian scene. I won't spend too much time on it. I'll just give you a quick explanation, and we'll get to the end, and then you guys can have a little bit to say as well. So we're going to start at number 10 of the Australian boxing scene, and he is finally in the mix. Number 10, I've put that's not a word, I've put Nikita Tszyu in at number 10. He's been knocking on the door for just a little while. I think, what is he, at 9-0 now? And look, there's probably some arguments out there to say, well, maybe he's only had the 9 fights, so how can we include that? But this guy is just been a wrecking machine so far. Has had his ups and downs, I will say, but he's 9-0, and there's just I went right through all the ratings and all the prominent Australian fighters at the moment, and to be honest with you, I just can't see anyone that could really be put in front of Nikita around that mark. I mean, there's been a lot of fighters with losses recently. Rowan Murdoch, Dempsey McKean, just to name a couple that would have been in the mix. Michael Zarafa, of course. So I just think at this stage, at 9 fights, Nikita Tszyu is at number 10. And this is the thing you'll probably find with these ratings, guys. The top 6, 7, 8, I think are pretty conclusive. It's just that 8 to maybe 12 or 13 it was pretty hard. But I've gone for Nikita Tszyu I think he's been busy, he's been active, he's tested himself in each fight, and I just haven't seen any of those other guys that could probably knock him off at this stage. So number 10 for me is Nikita Tszyu. Let's go to number 9. I've gone with Paulo Acuso. Now, a lot of you guys that aren't from Australia might be wondering who some of these guys are, but Paulo Acuso, an Olympian 2020, even though it was, of course, in 2021. So Olympian, I think he's 9-0 as well at the moment. Just a unique talent. And if you're not familiar with him, he's a southpaw version of Jai Pataya, if you ask me. He's a super talented, razor-sharp punches, good skill, good chin, good kit of punches. Very, very good fighter. The only slide I'll have on him at the moment, we haven't seen a lot of him because he left No Limit. I still can't get my head around why. Only him and his team could probably answer that question. But that's probably the only thing that I think will hinder him going forward. Has he got that backing? I know there's been some other promoters that he's been speaking to. He was supposed to be on the Wildfighter event a couple of weeks ago. His opponent pulled out at the last minute. So, but watch this guy. If you're not familiar with him, Paulo Acuso, definitely one to watch. And I think, for me, future world champion for sure. All right. Number, 8. I've gone with Liam Wilson. Now, of course, unsuccessful in his world title challenge a month or so ago against Oscar Valdez. Has had the previous shot against Emmanuel Navarrete, come up short. But look, as far as credentials go and resume, I think Liam Wilson ticks the boxes. Hasn't been disgraced in any of the fights. He started very well against Oscar Valdez. Of course, he put Navarrete down. Just probably a little bit out of his depth at that particular stage of his career with the Valdez fight, but I'm sure he'll be back. But at the moment, number 8 still in the Oz ratings. I think he might have slid just maybe 1 or 2 spots since the last time I did my ratings. But for me, Liam Wilson still in the top 10 for Australia. And as I said at the start, the top 8 was pretty easy to pick. We've got some really solid world-class guys now. It's probably just the order, and then it just sort of fell away a little bit after that. And I've put Acuso and Nikita in there as really, really good potential, or prospects with potential to fight and maybe even win world titles. So Liam Wilson for me is number 8. Then we go to number 7. I have Liam Paro. Of course, he's got the big world title fight coming up with Subriel Matias. It's going to be a very, very tough fight for Liam over there in Puerto Rico. It's for the WBO, is it? Yeah, WBO. No, sorry, IBF. IBF 140-pound title. So, look, as I said, it's going to be a very, very tough fight for Liam, but just like a lot of Aussies in the last couple of years, he's put himself out there, willing to travel, no problems whatsoever. We've seen other Aussies like Jeff Horn and George Kambosos, Jason Maloney last year with big upsets overseas. So I think Liam Paro will surprise a lot of people. It's going to be a tough fight, make no mistake about it. But for me at the moment, Liam Paro, the only thing that may go against him is what we spoke about at the start, is a little bit of inactivity. He has been injured. Only the one fight in the last sort of 16, 17 months. But it was a very good win over Montana Love overseas. So for me, Liam Paro, number 7 in the Aussie rankings. And D-Style says Liam has a realistic shot in that fight. Yes, mate, I'm with you. A lot of people don't rate Liam, because I just think it's because I don't know much about him. But no different to George Kambosos going to the States to fight Lopez. No different to Liam Wilson going to fight Navarrete over there. I think Liam Paro is capable of a similar type of surprise. He's slick. He's a southpaw. I think he's going to give Matias some problems with his footwork and speed. It's just a matter of whether he can do it for 12 rounds. But for me, number 7, that probably just tells us how deep we're batting at the moment in Australia when you've got a great young fighter, very good young fighter in Liam Paro at number 7. All right, let's go to number 6. And this is probably where the order starts to get a little bit muddied and we get a little bit of debate. But for me, Andrew Maloney at number 6. Now, we had obviously the setback last year against Junto Nakatani. No disgrace in losing to Nakatani, of course. Has had the one comeback win late last year and is fighting for the WBC interim title this weekend on the Kambosos-Lomachenko undercard. Now, if he wins that fight, he will go up quite a few spots, probably into the top 3 or 4. I think if he wins this week, obviously it depends on what happens with George as well. But Andrew Maloney's got the runs on the board. He did win the WBA interim title 5 years ago, but then was actually elevated to the full champion. So he is a former world champion, and as I said, he gets his shot at another interim title this weekend, and if he wins that, I think he will go up at least a couple of spots, maybe even 3 in the Oz ratings, depending on other results as well. So Andrew Maloney still in the thick of things, in the top 10 of the Australian boxing scene. Number 5, I sort of went back and forth with Andrew or this guy Sam Goodman. Sam Goodman's about to be very well known around the world as the next opponent, possibly for Naoya Inoue. I don't think they would have gotten him over to Japan into the ring if he wasn't going to be next. Probably depends on whether it's going to be in Australia. I know there's been a few news articles today or in the last couple of days about the Goodman Inoue fight being in Australia. I strongly doubt it. I just don't think there's the money to entice Naoya Inoue to Australia, considering the amount of money he generates in Japan. Inoue is obviously scheduled to fight, or possibly has been mooted that he might fight in England, so maybe that's a possibility as well. My money is still on Sam Goodman having to travel to Japan, and that is one daunting situation to be in. So, look, it's going to be tough. I do applaud Sam Newman, even though it might have been a little bit tongue-in-cheek, saying, look, hey, he knows, or he thinks he has what it takes to beat Inoue. Only he knows that. And look, you've got to be confident. He's a fighter. I don't understand a lot of the, even though this might end badly for Sam, I don't understand a lot of the people out there, and we'll call them the casuals, whatever you want to say, that are questioning Sam even wanting to fight Inoue. Now, granted, it's going to be one hell of a task in beating Inoue, but these guys, they dedicate their lives to this sport. They give up so much, so it really shouldn't depend or shouldn't matter who the champion is. You've got to fight them to win the belt. So I applaud Sam Goodman, as hard a task as it's going to be. In my opinion, nigh on impossible, but you just don't know, and I applaud him for at least saying, hey, I want the fight. He could easily wait 12 months and hope that Inoue goes up, but he's putting his hand up now. And regardless of what happens, even if he gets destroyed by Inoue, it wouldn't be the first one for that to happen. So he's still going to be in line, you would think, especially if he puts up a good performance, that he could be in line for vacant belts or whatever it might be. So again, I applaud Sam Goodman for saying, hey, I'm willing to go in there and have a crack, because that's all you can do. So, but for me, number 5. Yeah, you're right, D-Style. Absolutely nothing to lose. I don't think one person will, well, apart from probably his parents and his team, will probably, and his promoter will have to say it, will probably pick him to win this fight. Again, I applaud him for doing it. So, all right, number 4. So we get into this. This is where it gets very hard and where the arguments start. But I'm going to go with number 4 being George Kambosos Jr. So obviously I won't say he's been overly active, but he's been active enough. Of course, he had that big win over Teofimo Lopez, was that 2.5 years ago? Lost the 2 fights with Haney, the disputed fight with Maxie Hughes last year. But now coming up against Vasily Lomachenko. If George Kambosos wins this fight on Sunday in Perth, for me, he will be, what's that, David? Yeah, a few people would like to see that, Dave. Sam Newman against the Munster, yep. In my opinion, this weekend, if George Kambosos can pull off a win over Vasily Lomachenko, he will go to number 1. And I don't care whether Tim Tszyu beats Virgil Ortiz or Joe Pataia repeats the dose against Marius Briedis. In my opinion, George Kambosos wins this weekend. He will be number 1, regardless of those 2 results. The Virgil Ortiz win from Tim might be maybe arguable, but I don't care if Jai Pataia wipes Briedis out in 2 rounds, 1 or 2 rounds. I would still put George Kambosos, if he beats Lomachenko, at number 1. Because it's probably like the Teofimo Lopez fight. It would be just one of the biggest upsets in Australian sporting history, and one of the big upset, not one of the biggest, but a massive upset in the world of boxing. Can he do it a second time? I know no one really gives him a chance, especially overseas. But I think he gives Lomachenko a good fight. I really do. Can he pull it off? Okay, I'm not quite sure. I'm probably more hopeful rather than anything. But I'm certainly not going to underestimate George Kambosos, and I think he puts up a great performance this week. But again, if he wins this weekend, he'll be number one. All right, into the top three. I've still gone for Jason Maloney. Now, this could obviously change on Sunday, but look, until George fights, I can't probably make the argument of dropping Jason down because no one has really made a case. As I said, George this weekend, Sam Goodman will have an opportunity. His brother will have an opportunity. But just at this particular stage, even though he lost a couple of days ago, I've still got Jason Maloney at number 3. He wasn't disgraced in the fight. Yes, he lost clearly, but he wasn't he wasn't destroyed or knocked around. He was just simply outboxed on the night. So for me, still Jason Maloney holds his place at number 3 in the pound for pound rankings. All right, so this is again where it gets very debatable. Number 2, I've gone for Tim Tszyu. So now, would he have been number 1 if he had to beat Fundora? Probably. He would have been a 2-belt champion. Still just an unbelievable fighter is Tim. He will get an opportunity to right the wrongs, I suppose, if you want to call it that. In August against Virgil Ortiz. Still for me, the clear number 2. What's that D-style? It's about Jason. Jason could have definitely won that fight had Guy tied and almost out, yeah. Well, I did see a lot of people say he probably should have poured it on earlier D-style, but I just think that whenever he did try that during the fight, I'm not saying Jason fought one of his smartest fights. I'm not saying that at all, but I think Take made it a little bit easier for him in the last round when he punched himself out in the first 1 minute and then was just a sitting duck for the remainder of the 2 rounds. But I suppose we'll never know, will we? So just a quick one before we move on there. I'm putting $100 on Kambosos, but when I bet, I never win. I lost $100 on Zerafa, but I'll always believe in our Aussies. Nah, that's cool, mate. That's no problem supporting your Aussies. But for Tim, look, I don't really have to say too much about Tim. He's got the runs on the board. He's a former world champion. He'll possibly be interim WBA champion in August, and I just don't see anyone apart from our number 1, which I'm assuming you know who that's going to be. I just don't see any other fighter at the moment, right here and now, as I sit here, doing enough to get past him, even though he did lose his last fight. But that will change on Sunday if George Kambosos can beat Vasily Lomachenko. Dave, no Alex Wood at the tail end. Look, mate, he was in the mix, but he's had 4 fights, and I know it's not the absolute prerequisite of where we're getting, where we're rating these guys. I did have him on the short list, but I just thought with Nikita and Paulo Akuso, I think both guys are probably a little bit more talented. They've had twice as many fights. Alex has looked really impressive so far. One of his wins was actually a guy that won, I can't remember his name offhand, that actually fought for the world title after he lost to Alex. So no doubt he'll be in there at some stage, Dave, but it was between the 3 of them. It was Alex, Nikita, and Paulo, and I just think Nikita and Paulo are just ahead of Alex at this stage. But look, he's had 4 fights, so I'm sure that will change in the near future. Which of course brings us to number 1, Jaya Pataya. I've obviously got his rematch with Marius Briedis in a couple of weeks' time. Did speak to Mick Francis, I think it was a couple of weeks. So I think they head out tomorrow to go to Saudi Arabia, which is quite close when you think about it. It's only a week and 2 days out from the fight. But anyway, they've obviously done their planning. But yeah, Jaya Pataya so far had the win over Briedis. He's had 2 demolition wins since then. Now, I'm not totally putting the number 1 ranking based on his 2 most recent fights, because they were okay, but they weren't really top level. And I think if Tim had beaten Fundora, yes, I probably would have put him above Jai. But the fact that Tim lost that fight, and Jai has shown he's given us no reason to put him down in the rankings. I just think for me, just one of those gut feeling decisions. I suppose what it came down to is that Tim lost his last fight, pure and simple. That's just what it comes down to when you look at both of them together, thinking, well, I think Tim has the better resume. Jai obviously has been on a roll as well. I just want to put them both together. End of the day, Tim lost his last fight. We can't dispute that. We can't put an asterisk beside it. He lost his last fight, which means Jai, for me, takes the number 1 spot. So let's put up all the top 10 as it stands. So number 10, Nikita Tszyu. Number 9, Paulo Akuso. Number 8, Liam Wilson. Number 7, Liam Paro. Number 6, Andrew Maloney. Number 5, Sam Goodman. Number 4, George Kambosos Jr. Number 3, Jason Maloney. Number 2, Tim Tszyu. And number 1, Jai Opetaia. I'll just go back to my home screen there. A couple of comments before we move on to the world scene. So Jai has the biggest world profile. Does he? I'm just a question. I would think, and maybe D-Style and Batman in the chat may be able to answer this a little bit more. I would think that Tim Tszyu would have the higher profile in world boxing at the moment. These guys can obviously shed more light on it. I think Jai is getting more known. He's got a lot more respect. But I would think that, especially based on Tim headlining a big fight night, pay-per-view on T-Mobile, at T-Mobile Arena, even though he lost, I think he gathered a lot of fans out of that. I just think I would have thought that Tim would have had the bigger profile. But again, Batman and D-Style, let me know what you think. Yeah, pair of savages. That's for sure, Batman. I feel bad for Zerdo if they throw him in there with Jai. Yeah, I do too there, D-Style. I think there's a few cruiserweights out there maybe hoping that Jai goes up to heavyweight. Dave Jenkins says, I have Andrew Maloney ahead of Sam Goodman based on his opponents. Yeah, look, I'm not going to argue with that, Dave. Again, it's sometimes you got to make a decision, I suppose. And I'm sure I'll get more debate on the world rankings. But yeah, look, I went back and forth on that one, David. I'm not certainly going to argue if you had Andrew ahead of Sam, not at all. Batman, both are known by boxing fans. I would think Tim is more known worldwide. Jai has a lot more Brits know him from the Saudi card, but overall I would say Tim. Yeah, that's a good point, Batman. Maybe, or we're talking worldwide, again I'd say Tim, but you're right, in England maybe it's Jai. Who knows? What's that, Bill? I thought worldwide Kambosos has been more known. Well, it's not a bad point, Bill. I've seen it firsthand. I was in Vegas last year when it was Haney Lomachenko. Jason had won the week before, so we all went to Las Vegas, and George Kambosos was absolutely mobbed everywhere he went. Everywhere he went. I saw it 3 times. Once in the foyer at the MGM Grand, once at the open workouts, and another one just outside a copy shop. He was mobbed, signing autographs, photos. He's very, very well known. However, having said that, Bill, I think if Tim Tszyu was in the same situation now, he would be mobbed as well. So, look, probably line ball. And I don't think, to be honest with you, if Jai was at the MGM Grand, say, last weekend for Canelo and Munguia, whether he would have got the same attention from fans. So that probably tells you a lot. And that's why I say to people, especially the ones that badmouth George Kambosos, say, look, I've seen it firsthand. This guy over there, I know he's probably not rated by a lot of the fans over there, but it doesn't take away at all. He's a very, very well-known fighter, and when I've been over there so many times and seen fighters get mobbed, he's no different to a lot of the other of the top-tier fighters in the world. So that probably tells you a lot. D-Style says, Tim's been known longer over here because of his dad, but do Tim's fights get shown in the UK? Oh, I think they would there, mate. I think he'd be pretty well known over there as well. What's that? Oh, Captain, my captain. I like that. Maloney's better known in Japan, Tszyu in the US, and Jai in the UK. Good way of looking at it there, mate. Tim definitely know more in the US. Yep. There's Glenn in the chat. How are you, Glenn? We've just done the Aussie top 10. We're about to do the top 10 world-ranked fighters. Mick Tabor. Not as many eyes on Jai's weight class as Tim's. Good point. I'm swayed by the fact that Jai is generally recognised as the best in his division. Yeah. Well, I think, probably arguably Tim was more recognised in his division. Again, arguably, I suppose you got to put Charlo in there as the champion in recess, whatever. But, yeah, look, all good points. Only big boxing nerds like me know who Jai is there. Good point. Yep, in the US, yep. Damien says, Inoue and Joshua on the same card in September. Yes, please. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? If it goes to Wembley, that is, probably 90,000 people there. It would just be incredible. Might be worth a trip over there, Damien. Batman says, to D-Style, not really always picked up by UK TV, but I would still think Tim is known more here than Jai, even with his dad's name. Yeah, good call there. All right, well, without any further ado, guys, we are about to get into the top 10 of the world scene. Now, I know 100% there's going to be a lot of you out there going to differ with my opinions, but just let me go through it, and I'll be happy to explain all and every one of my opinions. So, what's that one more comment from D-Style? Joel will be a name everyone knows once he goes to heavyweight, though. Victor Ball with a switch to the Tassie side. I might do the same thing. A damn Essendon support. Oh, we're talking footy now. Yep. Who you guys picked as top 3 Aussies? Jai, Tim, and then Maloney. I've got George. No, I did have Maloney at 3, didn't I? Jason Maloney, and then I had George at 4. Opatai is a pound for pound top 10 fighter. Wow, that's another good call. Anytime boxing gets discussed with Australian fighters, it will be sure to. I'll be sure to mention both these monsters. Yes, mate, get it out there amongst the chat rooms in England. But yeah, it's a great argument to have, isn't it? I mean, to have that top, let's just say the top 4, the big 4, Jai, Tim, Jason, and George. Now, the orders, obviously can change. Results, it's interesting that 2 of those fighters are coming off losses. It could be 3 this week with George Kambosos. Who knows? But let's get into the top 10, guys. The world scene, the top 10 global world rankings. And I'm going to start with this guy, Jesse Bam Rodriguez. He's been on a bit of a tear the last couple of years. He's got a big fight coming up, of course, with Estrada. That will be a classic passing the torch type of fight, I think, in my opinion. Estrada, of course, has been a great champion, been in many, many big fights with the best in that division of the last sort of decade or so. But I just think, again, is he a 2-time world champion? I haven't got it in front of me there. But look, just a great young... Well, I'm not going to bandy around the word great when I shouldn't. A very, very, very good fighter is Jesse Bam Rodriguez. And I think once he beats, if he does beat, of course, Francisco Estrada, I think you would have a lot of more people would have Bam Rodriguez in the top 10. He could be borderline with a lot of rankings out there. I must admit, I deliberately didn't go on to other sites to see their top 10. This is purely my opinion. I was tempted to go on the Rings top 10 rankings, boxing scene. I know everyone has one, ESPN, they all have one. I sort of should have said that at the start. I deliberately didn't go on there because I didn't want to be influenced by anyone. So I've gone with Jesse Rodriguez, Bam Rodriguez at number 10. Let me know what you think of that one. All right, judging by the comments, we've got a couple on board. Bam is a beast. Nobody at 115 beats him. But I do think Junto would be too much at 118. Well, it's funny you should say that, Batman, as I take your comment off there. I have Junto Nakatani at number 9. Now, I know a lot of scribes, I suppose you'd call them, probably won't have Nakatani in the top 10s, but this guy is a freak, just like Inoue. I know he's not as much of a freak as Inoue, I will say, but for me, the fight I would love to see, probably the biggest Japanese fight of all time, would be Nakatani versus Inoue. Let's hope we get that down the track. But I saw firsthand last year his win over Andrew Maloney at the MGM Grand. He backed that up last time out. I think that was on Inoue's last card as well. But look, this guy I'm sure he's an absolute superstar over in Japan. But for me, this guy is a potential top 5 pound for pound fighter. This guy can fight. So, what do we got there with some comments? I think this is the best we've ever been, Batman. Okay, all right. Is that H Money? H Money, whatever that is. I don't know if you pronounce it. H? Yeah, D-Style, Nakatani Inoue. Look, I think Nakatani is, if there is anyone capable of beating in a way at that lower weight class or around those classes. I know it's been put out there about moving up and fighting Gervonta Davis and all. I just don't see the sense in why he would go to 135 and he's a 122-pound fighter, even going to 126. I have seen a few writers say, well, his legacy would be tested if he doesn't go to 126. He'd have to be questioned. How can you question a guy that's gone up 4 weight divisions so far? I don't understand it. And question his legacy if he decides to stay at 122 and says, look, I've gone too far. This is enough for me. How you could even question that? Enough of Inoue, though. He's going to come later on in the rankings. But for me, Junto Nakatani, number 9. And as I said, I think the fight with... Oh, hang on. What have we got there? Nakatani beats Inoue. Well, that is a bold statement, Peter. But, hey, this is probably the one fighter in the world at the moment at that weight. I would give him a chance to beat Inoue. Whether he could pull it off or not, I think his pinpoint punches... yeah, I think he's a chance. But again, very, very bold statement to even put out there that you could beat Inoue. But anything's possible. 99.9% of fighters lose at some stage. So let's just hope it gets made anyway. It'll be fantastic. All right, I'm sure this one's going to be a little bit contentious at number 8. What do we got there? I have Shakur Stevenson now. I know it'll be said, well, he's been retired. He hasn't fought for a while, but I'm not putting him in. I did put him in the list because he's not on the inactive list. He's fought, what did he fight, 6, 7, 8 months ago? He hasn't been as inactive as others. So this is why, even though he retired and came back, I'm going to keep him on there based on his past performances. I know last time out, it was an absolute snooze fest. It wasn't his best performance by any means, but you've got to go by his entire resume. This guy, I still look back to when he schooled Oscar Valdez, among others. This guy can fight, and at his best, could probably even be higher. I'll let you guys talk amongst yourself there. But, I just think take away the retirement sort of stunt, I suppose, if you want to call it that. I've still got Shakur Stevenson as the number 8 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He's got a little bit of work to do to go up the rankings. I know they're talking about possible fights with Davis and who knows, maybe, I doubt it'll be Garcia or could be Haney. Could we see him with someone like a Pitbull, or could we see... Excuse me, if Lomachenko wins this weekend, or even George, we could see both of those guys, or either the winner of that fight Shakur Stevenson, which would be a big one, wouldn't it? So for me, at the moment, I know some people out there will disagree, but I've still got Shakur at number 8 based on previous performances. At number 7, I have the tank, Gervonta Davis. Look... Hasn't been active at all. Hasn't fought since April last year. Hasn't got a fight lined up with Frank Martin in mid-June. I think it is mid to late June. Just going back to quickly on Shakur, no doubt elite, and on his night, such a difficult talent to land on, let alone beat. Because I am about 30 seconds in front here, guys. So if I do move on to the next slide, I'll come back. Shakur Stevenson, division world champion. He was unified champion in Ring Magazine. Yep, well, that probably highlights my point there, mate. Shakur is a great sprinter. Well, there's always a flip side, isn't there? All right, so on to Tank Davis. Look, I don't think you can probably argue too much. While having said that, Glenn says no to Tank. Look, I understand he's not very active, but this is a guy that's obviously beat Ryan Garcia last time out. He's got Frank Martin coming up. He's had wins, Leo Santa Cruz, and he's had some very, very good wins. Look, you've got to have someone in the top 10. I just couldn't see really anyone, apart from obviously the 6 in front of him, that could go past him, to be honest, Glenn. So for me, you could probably make a case, but for me, Gervonta Davis at number 7. All right, what do we got there? H Money. Tank got the best offense and the most power. At that weight, he does, mate. It certainly does. Certainly does. All right, what are we up to? Number 6. I have Artur Beterbiev. Now, I don't think it's much debate that, just quickly, Tank is a fly. Got to have anyone in the top 10 but him. Well, I'm not ranking him on my opinion of him there, Mark. I'm with you. I'm not a massive fan of him as a person. I've got to take personalities out of the whole thing. I'm just going on his resume, and I think he's the 7th best fighter. So Artur Beterbiev, of course, suffered the injury. The Bivol fight won't happen until probably the end of this year, if not the start of next year, which is a real shame considering his age as well. I don't think I have to probably go through his qualifications too much. I think most people, I would think 9 people out of 10 would have Artur Beterbiev in their top 10. It's probably just a matter of where. But for me, I've got him at number 6. If he had beaten Bivol, he would probably go up into the top 2 or 3, to be honest. But until that fight happens, I've got him at number 6. A couple more comments on Tank. Tank is a devastating puncher and definitely has underrated ring IQ. Look how easy he was able to read Ryan, clear gap in skills. Yeah, well, that's probably the litmus test, Batman. Very, very good fighters and great fighters make other very, very good / great fighters look ordinary. And I always go back to someone like a Floyd Mayweather. Made so many great or very good fighters look ordinary. Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, to name just a couple, Cotto, and, I could rattle off probably about 10 different names. So, yeah, and that is the definition, or shows the definition of or what separates those fighters, Batman, and that's the ring IQ. And yeah, I think Tank definitely has it. Glenn, Art, a good choice. Bivol next, I guess. There's Davenport. How are you there, mate? What's that, Peter? I've moved him up to number 3. This is what's great about these debates. Really, really good. You've got someone that says he's not even in the top 10. You have someone else that says he's in the top 3. So this is why we do it. And I'm not going to argue with anyone about it, guys, because everyone has their own opinion, but I will try and justify my choices as we go. Jules agrees with me so far. Top 10 shaping up nicely. Looking forward to Jai and Tim being named global 1 and 2. Well, we'll see. Inoue, Crawford, Davis, Bivol. Artur Beterbiev has a 100% knockout record. Yep. Usyk number 1 next weekend. All right, well, we'll keep going through and see how we go with that there. Damien, number 5. It is I won't call him the arch enemy. The heir apparent, Dmitry Bivol, number 5. Look, he hasn't done anything wrong, has he? He's had that win over Canelo, amongst others. He's fighting Zalad. Malik Zinad, is that his name? Fought, of course, on the last pay-per-view show, so he's going to obviously get the shot against Bivol. Again, I don't think you can really argue Bivol being in the top 10. It's probably just the order of it. And I think number 5 is about right. Just right in the middle of the rankings. Again, I'm sure it'll come up when someone else is mentioned soon about where they rank. But for me, I just think number 5 is just a nice, comfy spot for Bivol, if that can be used as a term. So, all right. You did tell me, Glenn. Who you reckon's at number 4, mate? Let me know. All right, into the top 4. And this is where I no doubt there'll be plenty of debate. I have at number 4... Alexander Usyk, and just as I put that up, I think I've spelt his name wrong, but you get the gist. It's not an easy word to spell. So I've got Alexander Usyk in there. Now, Damien did say there that if he wins this weekend, he would be number 1. Geez, he'd definitely make a case, wouldn't he, Damien? Some pretty good fighters in front of him. One of them fought 2 days ago and did the job. But look, I wouldn't argue if he was a couple of spots higher, Usyk, or maybe even at number 1. Well, maybe I would argue if he was number 1. But for me, Alexander Usyk, number 4. I just think there's, obviously 3 more in front of him. Batman says, Beterbiev, even 40, stops anyone at 175, including Bivol, in my opinion, especially if it happened in June. Hopefully, Father Time doesn't beat Beterbiev. Yeah, and I'd love to see him fight someone like Benavides too. Batman. Geez, that'd be a mouthful if they fought, wouldn't it? Beterbiev versus Benavides. That would be a real nice one to try and pronounce over and over. All right, so Alexander Usyk at number 4. I won't spend too much time on that because I'm sure there'll be lots of things coming at me after I put up my final 3. All right, number 3. Yes, you probably guessed it. Canelo Alvarez, and I know this will probably upset a few, but look, the reason I've got him at number 3, and I know you could make a case for Bivol, he beat him a couple of years ago. I just think Canelo Alvarez, despite the loss has moved on. He's had some really, really good wins since. I know there's always argument, well, unless he fights Benavides, his legacy's tainted and all this sort of stuff. Well, since then, look, he's had the win over Charlo. It's not, look, I know he could probably get some slack for Charlo coming up from 154, but he dominated Charlo. It wasn't his fault that Charlo didn't turn up to fight. I thought Munguia, despite a lot of people in the opposition to it, I thought Munguia was the second best option at this weight behind Benavides. I thought it was a great win by Canelo, and that's probably what really put, for me, him above Usyk. And again, look, that will probably, if Usyk beats Fury on the weekend, I would say that Usyk will go to number 3. He'll surpass Canelo. But as it stands at the moment, I just think Canelo Alvarez rebounded so well from the loss to Bivol. Didn't let it get to him. He moved on. He's had, John Ryder, Charlo, and now Munguia. And I just don't think you can fault his resume, and not just his recent resume, but going way back. He's always been active, always fought the top challenges, always fought for the belts, and I just don't think you can take that away from him. Yes, you can probably potshot him for not fighting Benavides yet, but that still might come. But as it stands at the moment, for me, Canelo Alvarez back at number 3. Batman says, for based on activity and resume, I've got Inoue or Canelo 1 and 2, however, all have a claim. Yep. So Damien doesn't agree. All right, we'll keep going, and then I will answer your questions. Oh, a couple more there. I feel Benavides wouldn't want open up with those combinations with Beterbiev. It only takes one to change the entire fight. I think Beterbiev knocks Benavides out. Beterbiev knocks Benavides out. Undisputed at cruiserweight and heavyweight, it's a wrap beating AJ twice, and Fury, who's way taller and outweighs him by 60 pounds. As I said, Damien, it's just where we stand at the moment. If Usyk wins this weekend, yes, he'll go above Canelo, but as it stands at the moment, I've got to go with Canelo. I'm sorry. He hasn't beaten Fury yet. And if he doesn't, well, I think I'll be justified. And if he does, well, I'm happy to move him up. But look, again, not going to argue with anyone out there. I totally understand it. But for me, at this stage, Canelo is number 1. Canelo is a great fighter, but he's picking the fights he can't lose. Well, who else is there to fight apart from Benavides, though, Peter? That's probably my serious question. Put Benavides in there, who I still think he beats Benavides. Just my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of you out there will say to the contrary, and that's fine. But what are the fighters he's picking that he can't lose to? It's not his fault that he's a great fighter. Canelo is a great fighter, and the only one, in my opinion, that has a chance of beating him is, of course, Benavides. And that's it. I don't think anyone at 168. And again, I know there's been some people say, well, he's got to go back and try and be great at 175. This guy's a middleweight fighting at 168. He's 160, a natural 160, fighting at 168. He's way too small to be at 168, but he still fights there because that's where the big fights are. So I think you got to give him some credit on that. But let me know there, mate. It's a serious question. I'm not having a crack at you or anything about your comment there. But who are the fighters he's picking that he can't lose to? He's fought all the best fighters in the division bar Benavides. So if Benavides is the only one, I don't see how you could question him fighting Munguia. Yes, I could probably question the Charlo fight, but Ryder had earned his shot, Munguia had earned his shot. So yeah, I don't quite agree with that, Peter, that he's picking the fights he can't lose, because he's doing exactly that. He can lose all those fights, really. They're all good. They're all the top ranked fighters apart from Benavides. So, but all good, mate. That's your opinion. That's good. It's cool. Canelo had 8 fights in the time Crawford had 3 since 2021. For me, Canelo above Crawford, but no problem with anyone having it anyway. Obviously, yeah, well, this is where the debate starts, Batman, no doubt. Morrell murders Munguia. Yeah. I don't agree with that, Glenn. I'm going to be serious. I think maybe Morrell maybe beats Munguia. I don't think he does it that easy there, Glenn, but maybe we'll get the chance to see one day. Bivol beat the shit out of Canelo. He dominated him, didn't he, Peter? Yeah, but he's not. Canelo's not the first fighter to be dominated, a great fighter to be dominated. We've seen that over the journey, many times. I mean, he's just one straight off the top that I think back to. I look at a wild couple. I look at someone like Julio Cesar Chavez. Got upset by Frankie Randall. Now, Frankie Randall was a very, very good fighter. You know, he beat Julio Cesar Chavez, but in the scheme of things in the history of boxing, does Frankie Randall even get mentioned? He was the first one to beat Julio Cesar Chavez. Julio Cesar Chavez, for me, is a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter of all time. Before anyone gets in there, he fought Taxi Driver, all that sort of stuff, or whatever, that's your opinion. And you might have him slightly outside the top 10. But Julio Cesar Chavez, arguably the greatest Mexican fighter of all time against Canelo, Morales, Barrera, and all, Zarate, Olivares, all these types of fighters. But Frankie Randall never even gets a mention. And no one rates Frankie Randall above Chavez, even though I know Chavez did avenge the loss. But you know what I'm getting at? I don't define someone like a great fighter like Canelo Alvarez just because he had that one loss. And don't forget, unlike Chavez, who fought Randall at the correct weight, Alvarez went up, well, Canelo went up to 175. And as I said before, this guy is a natural 160-pound fighter. He went up to 175. So I just put a line through that, and I don't even hold that against Canelo. When I go to rate him in the history of the great fighters in probably 10 years' time, I will not put that Bivol fight as a cross against Canelo Alvarez in the whole scheme of things. Now, he might get demolished by David Benavides, or whatever, might change everything, but right here and now, I agree with you that Bivol dominated Canelo, but I don't think that will define Canelo in his legacy. Canelo has an unbelievable resume now, gone 65 fights, still yet to hit the canvas. Yep. Made of iron. Benavides stops Benavides. Yep, I agree. David Morrell beats Canelo every day of the week. Arguably, Glenn, you're talking about a guy that's had 10 fights. I'm not sure. Look, he's looked good so far, but Munguia had won 43 fights. Charlo had won, 30-odd fights. You know, like I don't know. I'm not going to argue the point there, Glenn, but I would disagree that it definitely beats him every day of the week. I think you've got to give Canelo a little bit more respect than that. You're talking about a guy that's had 10 fights. Same goes with Madrimov against Crawford. I don't think you can really, in my opinion, make a strong case for Madrimov, except if Crawford turns up and he's hit the other side of the mountain overnight. Who knows? But all good arguments, guys. Let me get through the top 10 first, and then I'll go back and we can argue, debate about it. All right, let's go. Now, this will definitely be something to debate, no doubt. But look, Naoya Inoue, and I know we all know who number one, of course, is, and I know it's going to come. He's been a lot more active. The resume, arguably, I think Crawford's got a better resume, but Naoya Inoue, look, it was very, very line ball, especially based on his performance from 2 nights ago. A very clear number 2 for me, and potentially number 1. Look, the reason, and I'll put Crawford up now because we all know he's number 1. The reason I've gone for Crawford over Inoue is that you haven't seen Terence Crawford put down like Inoue was in the other night, tagged like he was the other night. I know Inoue got back on track. I'm not sure what happened to that number 1 up there, by the way. Yes, I have watched him. Glenn, he's a beast, but he's only had 10 fights, and he's been matched very, very carefully. He hasn't fought anyone of the caliber anywhere near Canelo Alvarez. Until he does, I can't pass judgment, mate. So many fighters have looked like absolute wrecking balls, knocking out fringe fighters. Let's just see how he goes against Canelo Alvarez. But I'll get back to that, mate. All good. But yeah, look, I'm not going to argue again with anyone that maybe has Inoue at number 1. I'm not. But I'm just sort of putting my opinion out there. Is that Terence Crawford, the only slight against him is he's been inactive. Hasn't fought since July last year, but that's probably the reason why I've kept him at number 1. Because it hasn't been a year yet, although it probably will be, or I think it will be once he fights Madrimov. But you've got to go by his past resume. He's cleaned out the welterweight division, cleaned out the 140-pound division. This guy's an all-time great, possibly top 10 pound for pound at some stage. But as I said, you haven't seen anyone really nail him, drop him, expose him in any way. And I just thought, in a way, as great as he is, or looks like he's going to be, he did show some flaws the other night. He just has his habit of pulling out with that chin up in the air and getting caught on the counter. Look, I know it's been picky, but you've got to pick a reason to go with one or the other. And gut feeling is the other feeling as well. But I'm sure it's going to come for me now, but I've still got Terence Crawford as number 1, even though Inoue looked great on Monday night. I've still got to stick with Terence Crawford. He hasn't done anything apart from not fighting probably as often as he should be. I don't think, like, the fight he had last time out with Errol Spence, that gave him a lot of credit. So the way he absolutely dismantled Spence, and I know there'll be people out there saying, well, Spence was shot, but no one was saying that in the lead up to the fight. I'm pretty sure that Spence ended up being the favourite to beat that fight. And Crawford, as I say over there, beat him like he was his daddy. That was just the bottom line. And that's why I think he still holds a lot of credits for that win. And even though Inoue is very, very, very close at the moment, I'm still going to have to go with Terence Crawford. I'm going to go back to a couple of comments here, guys. I agree with Munster number 2. Crawford has better fundamentals. Yep. We agree on something tonight, Glenn. Morale legit contender. No doubt about that, Andy, and welcome to the show, mate. No doubt whatsoever that Morale and Benavidez is the fight that I want to see. I must admit, I haven't, unlike a lot of people, I haven't got an overbearing desire for the Benavidez-Canelo fight. I know everyone wants it out there, but I'm not stressed if it happens or not, to be honest. I think there's plenty of other good fights out there. I would love to see it, of course, but to be honest with you, if it was put to me like, which fight at that weight do you really want to see? I'd probably have Morale and Benavidez. I think it's a better fight. I know Canelo and Benavidez is the two top dogs for all the marbles, and no doubt Morale is a very, very good fighter, but again, only had 10 fights. So it's very hard to rank him in the scheme of things, but that is the fight I would prefer to see, and it probably won't happen at 168. It'll be at 175, Benavidez and Morale. I just think what will probably happen is Benavidez will end up fighting Morale, or it'll probably be a four-man sort of thing, Morale, Benavidez, Benabiyev and Bivol. Geez, there's a lot of B's in there, isn't there? And Canelo will be sort of left to his devices and just pick what's left of the carcass of the 168-pound division, and maybe 160's coming up. But I don't doubt he's a legit contender, Andy. I just don't see why there'd be this opinion of him. You know, I can't remember. It might have even been Glenn. Sorry, Glenn, don't want to pick you out there, mate, if it wasn't you. But to saying he would destroy Canelo. That's a big statement for someone that's only had 10 fights and not been tested against anyone. So, all right, let's keep going down the comments here. I'm prepared for it. I just don't understand what more Inoue could do if people don't have him number 1 now. He was literally swept twice division in 2 years. Good point, Billy. I like your point, mate. If it was anyone else except the guy over here, I'd agree with you, mate. But as I said, I just think Crawford has got way too many credits in the bank. I think he needs a bad performance or obviously a loss to lose, or maybe go another 2 years without fight. I don't know, but anyone else except Crawford, mate, I think you would have a legitimate point. But just that win last year against Spence for me is just giving him just that little nudge forward, if you ask me. So, but again, mate, you're entitled to your opinion, and I'm not going to argue with it, mate, because it definitely has some merit. Morale is legit. I'm just not ready to crown a guy that's beat one man with a Wikipedia page, regardless of him obviously passing any eye test. We definitely pass the eye test, Batman, no doubt about it. But you got to do more than just pass the eye test. You've got to start having some legitimate wins. And the facts are, not an opinion, facts are that he hasn't beaten anyone of note. And I didn't actually mention before, and Billy's probably someone you could throw in the mix as well at 168. Belunga, of course. Who you maybe like to see these guys fight. But who you got there, Andy? So you got Naoya, Bud. So you haven't decided on each one. You've got them at 1 and 2, so that's fine. Very hard to choose, mate. And again, I'm not going to disagree with anyone that says Inoue is number 1, but just in my opinion, Bud's done enough. Number 2, so Usyk, Canelo, yep, number 3. And 4 for me. Yep, just the way I had him, Andy. I think you could sort of juggle the balls, can't you, and mix them up a little bit. Crawford versus Floyd, if only. What a fight that would have been, Dave. Oh, wow. It's funny, and maybe we should do and I will do one in the next sort of week or two, a dream fight thing. Not necessarily, or maybe we would pick the winner, but the greatest fights of all time that never happened. Even with the events of the last couple of weeks, Oscar De La Hoya, Canelo Alvarez, for me, that just jumps off the page as what a fight that would have been. Is it the biggest fight that could have ever been made? Probably not. But just everything around it, the styles, the following of each fighters, for me, if I was asked to pick any fight that never happened, that would be number one. And I've probably given myself away there for when I do it. But De La Hoya, Canelo, but Crawford and Floyd, mate. Crawford, Pacquiao. Oh, wow. Crawford, Mosley, what a fight that would have been. Just so many great fights. Crawford, De La Hoya, I don't know. I could keep going all night. But maybe throw some suggestions at me of some of the best fights that never happened. No problem with anyone having Crawford, but I do have Inoue and Canelo over him. Okay, I'm interested that you got Canelo over him there, Batman. I'm not surprised with Inoue, but Crawford, Canelo over Crawford definitely surprises me, mate. But again, Canelo got the runs on the board, hasn't he? Mutty said I'd have him swapped until I see what Crawford does at 154. Yep, good point there, mate. Sorry, I missed your comment there before. So Batman, for me, Madrimov is a dangerous test for Crawford. He is. 100% he is. Madrimov has beaten gold medalists and world amateur champions numerous times. I'm sure they will fancy the chances against a 36-year-old that moved up. Yeah, I agree, Batman. I think they would definitely like their chances. I'm still backing our man Crawford to get the job done. Canelo is a great fighter who lost to the greatest in Mayweather. He did, mate. And I don't, as much as I love Canelo, I don't like the fans that say, oh, but you know, he's inexperienced. He's only 24 years old or whatever, 23 years old. Well, Mayweather was 36, and Canelo was a two-time world champion at that stage with 40-odd fights under his belt. So I don't think we can use that as an argument. At the end of the day, Canelo wanted Floyd. So there it goes. It's not like I don't think, well, maybe there has been talk that Mayweather pinpointed, wanted to get him then and not a couple of years later, but I don't know who knows what happens behind closed doors. But, yeah, what's that there? Peter? Sorry. Oh, sorry. What have we got there? Glenn. Fine if Canelo doesn't want to fight those two, then relinquish his belt then. I don't think he should be forced to fight Morrell, Glenn. Definitely Benavidez, of course. And I agree he should be stripped. Benavidez has been his mandatory for, 2 or 3 years. 100% agree that if Canelo... What should really happen, I know we're getting a little bit off track here. What 100% should happen is the WBC should say to Canelo, right, are you going to fight this guy in the next 6 months? If Canelo says, well, no, I'm not going to, then they should strip him. They won't because it's Canelo Alvarez. Massive sanctioning fees involved with the Canelo Alvarez fight. That should be put to the side. If the WBC... are a legitimate organisation and they say they're the number one in the business, they should say to Canelo, here's the deadline, do it or you're stripped. Same with Charlo. What's it been, 3 years, whatever it's been. So I agree with you, Glenn. The WBC should say to Canelo in the Benavidez situation, fight him or you're stripped. But I don't think Morrell meets the same criteria at this stage, mate. I don't. Up from 135, fair play to Crawford, taking on a dangerous opponent. I think Madrimov would beat everyone Crawford has, including that version of Spence. Yep, that's fine. 1 and 2 are obviously close and can obviously move fight to fight. Yep, if Crawford wins the belt in another division on August 4th, he'll overtake Inoue. Yep. Andy, I'm saying if Bud wins at 154, he'll be my number one pound for pound again. Yep, seems to be the theme. Records, belts, resumes aside, if you had to do a top 10 based on pure talent and ability, who's your top 5 and who is your one wild card who gets close to your top 10? This is the current fighters, Jules. Okay, so just based on pure ability, I would probably... that's an interesting one. I don't think I would... maybe Junto Nakatani would be my wild card, I think. Close to my top 10. I'd probably say close to my top 5 if you want to get nitty gritty with it, Jules. I think Junto Nakatani would be my wild card for a top 10 based purely on ability. Jaya Pataya is another one. So I think Crawford and Inoue would definitely be in there, but I think maybe Canelo may be nudged out, even though he's number 3. Usyk could be line ball. I think he's just effective, not overly, I just think he's above the fighters he's fought. But I think, Jai and Junto Nakatani, just off the top of my head, maybe Rodriguez as well, could be the 3 that maybe jump in the top 5 of purely based on talent. I hope I got that right. Billy sees mention of Mabili before is a good call for future top 10 wildcard. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see that. Billy, have you made that comment about Mbili? I liked it when Canelo said he would beat Oscar's ass. Easy work. Oh, what a fight that would have been. Ah, there's a great one from Peter. Opetaia Usyk at cruiserweight. Yeah, it might just be a tad early so far, Peter, but oh, what a fight. What about you throw Evander Holyfield in the mix? Evander Holyfield and Usyk. Or Holyfield and Opetaia. I mean, just some great fights that could have been made. It's a really, really good topic. I'll put that on the list there, Peter. The best fights. So that fight could still happen. So maybe that doesn't make the list, although maybe it's at cruiserweight. Anything above 154, Oscar getting stretched by Canelo. Yep, I would agree with that, Batman. I would say at 154 would be just one hell of a fight. Imagine Alexander Wojcik, is that him? Stops Benavides. Well, it could happen. Teddy Atlas said it could happen. Also managed and trained by Eddie Renaso. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, okay. Charlo just got... Oh, did he? Just got stripped today, finally. Well, I didn't see that, Damien. I haven't really been on the socials today, so about time. WBC Mando versus Benavides was due, but WBC gave Canelo pass for May. Okay, it's due by September now. We'll see soon enough. The reason I want Canelo to fight these other guys like Benavides and Morrell is because when he fights guys not on that level, like his past 3 fights before the weekend, they're lackluster fights, yeah. I didn't think it was a lackluster fight on the weekend, Billy. I thought it was actually a really good fight. Thought Munguia came to win. Yeah, Jamal in trouble. He certainly was in trouble. Crashed the car and fled the scene. Jai versus Hay even would be exciting. Yeah, that'd be a great fight too, Batman. So anyway, we'll keep them coming. But still on this, we'll go to the world top 10. I'll bring it up there, guys. So just to recap. So Jesse Bam Rodriguez at number 10. Number 9, Junto Nakatani. Number 9, Shakur Stevenson. Number 7, Javonte Davis. Number 6, Arta Beterbiev. Number 5, Dimitri Bivol. Number 4, Alexander Usyk. And I think I spelled it right there, but not on the other page. Number 3, Canelo Alvarez. Number 2, Naoya Inoue. And number 1 is Terence Crawford. Damien, that's an interesting fight, that one. I'll just go back to my home screen if I can find it. There it is. Crawford Hitman. Yeah, I sort of liken that fight a little bit to Mayweather and Hearns. I just think Hearns would be a bit big, wouldn't he? He would be big, but as I think might be debatable here, guys. But I think if the fight was at 147, I'm backing Crawford. I don't think Hearns was the fighter we all know and love him to be, or was, until he got to at least 154, if not 160. Yes, he scored some great knockouts at 147, but the only really big fight, I know you could probably put in Pepino Cuevas in there, probably a champion on the outer at the time. I don't think apart from Leonard, he didn't really fight any of the top tier welterweights. Would have loved to have seen him fight Aaron Pryor back in the day, but obviously it didn't happen. But I think the welterweight version of Hearns was a little bit frail. We saw that with Sugar Ray Leonard. Again, he did score some good knockouts, but not against great opposition. And I think Sugar Ray exposed him a little bit. And I think Crawford beats Hearns at 147, just like I picked Floyd to beat Hearns at 147. Above 147, totally different ball game. I think 154, it's Hearns all the way. A couple of other fights there. Fennec Michael would have been epic. You obviously love the Aussie fights there, Peter. Well, apparently, according to Barry Michael, I've spoken to him about this. Apparently, it was pretty close to actually happening. Barry Michael wanted Jeff Fenech right or wrong, but according to Barry, he said that Jeff's team wasn't overly concerned. Jeff had obviously started at bantamweight and gone right up to 130, so super feather, where Barry had come down from 135, was a big, strong, solid, tough 130-pound fighter. I think they might have just been a little bit worried that with Fenech's probably lack of power at that weight and the brittle hands, he wouldn't be able to keep Michael off him. So Barry Michael was very, very confident of winning that fight, and I would have given him a very good chance at that weight as well. Barry Michael was a very, very underrated fighter, very underrated. Batman disagrees with me. He says Hearns puts Crawford to sleep. Again, mate, anything above 147, I'm with you. But for me, 147, Crawford takes the fight. The 3 fights before the weekend, Ryder, Charlo, and Triple G were all boring. Yeah. Oh, the 3 fights before the weekend. Sorry, Billy. Yeah, they were, mate. Well, Triple G surprisingly didn't really come to win, I don't think, and I can't believe I'm saying that about Triple G. Charlo 100% didn't come to win. I thought Ryder did the best he could. He was just so far out of his depth, and as they say, the levels. I think Canelo just sort of did what he wanted, and that would have been a daunting task in Mexico too. By the way, I thought he did okay, Ryder. Just nowhere near Canelo's class. That's all. All right. Jules, good call on Nakatani. Where do you see Boots Ennis? I think he's legit, but understand not everyone is so hot on him. Look, potential there, Jules. I know he's not overly young anymore, is he? But haven't seen him have a big fight yet, Jules. That's what it comes down to. I've looked ability-wise. I'm assuming that's what you're getting at there. Ability-wise, yeah, you could probably make a very, very good case of him being in the top 10. But as a legitimate top 10 goes, what I've just ranked there, just hasn't beaten anyone. And if I was Boots Ennis at the moment, I know, who's he fighting? I can't remember. He's just been announced to fight someone. It escapes him now. But I would have thought that Boots Ennis, now that Crawford's gone up, would have been banging his fist on the table for someone of note. And I know there's not that many people around, but maybe he wants a Garcia or Haney to go up, or I don't know, maybe Teofimo Lopez. I know they're coming from lower divisions, but just call out someone. Try and get a big fight. I don't think the Stanioses of the world are really going to float his boat or anything like that. But yeah, who's he scheduled to fight? Let me know anyway, but I wasn't overly excited about it anyway. Buddy's like a blend of three of the four kings: Hearns, Hagler, and Sugar Ray Leonard. Yeah, I just think, Bud's definitely in that category, mate. I just don't, unfortunately for him, I know Spencer's probably enters the equation, but unfortunately for Bud, and probably a lot of other fighters like him, he didn't have the opportunity of having, a little round robin thing that he could do. Maybe if he had fought Spence 5 or 6 years ago, it could have been a little bit different. You could have other fighters now entering the equation. He could have maybe entered into the Pacquiao and Mayweather area. Although, when did Mayweather last fight? 17 was his last legit fight, so maybe not. But you see where I'm getting at there. Unfortunately for Bud, apart from Spence, he's never had that big legacy fight. I know he's beaten Brook and Khan and Porter and these types of guys, but unfortunately, apart from Spence, never had that big legacy fight. Just my opinion. I've never seen Crawford fight a guy with the size, reach, power, and IQ of Hearns. No, that's cool, mate. I'm not going to argue the point. Just in my opinion, I just didn't think Hearns was a very, very good welterweight, and he did have that good right hand. But I just don't think he hit his straps until he went up to 154, and especially 160. I think 160 was his weight. I know he went right up to cruiserweight and won world titles at both, especially at 175, and I think it was more an obscure title at what's cruiserweight, 190 or whatever it is. And he did dominate the 154-pound division there for a while. But at 147, mate, yeah, look, as I said, the Cuevas knockout was great. He had a few others, but never really had, apart from Leonard, a big welterweight fight. And the one big fight that he had, he got stopped, even though he fought very, very well in it. But Leonard took that right hand and hunted him down. So just for me, mate, I just think for me, Terence Crawford would have beaten Hearns at that weight. Duran, geez, how good have Crawford and Duran been? Wow. Yeah, every time I see that fight with Hitman with Duran, yeah, wow, that was crazy. Mike was hard as nails. He certainly was, mate. He still is to this day, mate. He's a great guy, Barry. Boots can dominate welterweight, now Bud gone. Ryan Garcia can compete for vacant welterweight belt pending suspension. Well, I think I did see that today, and that he's apparently gotten off. So we'll see. But I think Ryan Garcia, and I think even Devin Haney would be good at welterweight as well. So Boots Ennis has potentially got a couple of really, really big fights there. I think Boots would beat Garcia, but strangely enough, I think Haney would probably be. This is all based on style. I think Haney would give Ennis a better fight than what Garcia would, but it's purely just based on style. Mundine, Tim Tszyu. Wow. No, I would definitely back Tim Tszyu in that, Damien. And the only reason why, I'm assuming it's at 154, Chock was nowhere near the same fighter at 154. They would have to fight at 160. Mundine was more of a 168. And strangely enough, if you're not familiar with him out there, if you're watching from overseas, if you remember, he started at 168 and ended up at 154, and there's even talk he might even try to get to 147. Just amazing to go down and weight. And I think he'll tell you he's probably the only fighter in history to actually win world titles going down in weight. So it's crazy, even though a couple of them were interims, of course. But I think at 154, Damien, I think Tim Tszyu far too strong for Choc. But a prime Mundine, maybe they afforded a catch weight at 160. It's an even fight, mate, for sure. Calvin Baldwin, how you going there, mate? Geelong is in the house. Good to see you along there, mate. Tim Tszyu would have stopped Mundine with ease at that weight. Yep. Sell me on buying this damn Loma Kambosos pay-per-view this weekend. Mate, get the fight. I think, look, just the stature of these two guys, Lomachenko and Kambosos. I mean, both former, I was going to say both undisputed lightweight champions. I know they sort of weren't with the WBC sort of thing worked in there, but I'm going to call them both former undisputed lightweight champions, both with George hometown. Lomachenko, I liken it to when Pacquiao came out to fight Jeff Horn. The undercard is very, very solid. Damien, Andrew Maloney, I've got Quadros in my head. He's fighting the guy that Quadros beat. Anyway, that interim world title fight. I've seen him fight it again. I'm just having a shocking night with names here, guys. But he comes to fight. He's a banger. So, and Andrew knows no other way. So that'll be a ripper. The girls' fight will be really good as well. Shanika Johnson, Nina Hughes. If you're into the females, I think it'll be a very, very good, skillful, even fight. You got Lucas Big Daddy on the card as well. Joseph Goodall's on there against Django. So it's a good, solid card, mate. And I think the Russian, again, I can't remember his name. I'm having just a blank tonight, guys. Is it Matamayev? Is that his name? The Russian that's based here. He's on the undercard as well, mate. It's a really solid card from top to bottom, and it is a big event. Kambosos versus Lomachenko is a big fight in the scheme of things, especially in Australian boxing history. Will he win? Maybe not, but I think he gives a good account of himself. And if you want to support Australians doing great things, mate, I don't think, was it $60, $70 is that much to spend for a really, really solid card of fights, mate. It's not, I think there's been a couple of the shows where it's all about the main event and the undercard is quite weak. This is a solid card from top to bottom, mate. So not sure of a soldier on that. But anyway, Dave says Barry's fight against Earthquake Carter hurt his career. Americans wouldn't go near Barry after that performance. Good call there, David. And Barry will tell you that himself. He wasn't supposed to beat Earthquake Carter, and after that, could not get a fight with anyone. And that's why it's full credit to Lester Ellis, who gave him his opportunity. Lyndon, have we commented yet on the new studio setup? 1.21k subs, time to upgrade. Deep Dive is going nuclear. Well, I've got a little bit of the new setup. I'm in a proper studio at the moment. That's why I've probably gone away from the the green screen type of thing. Let me know if I can spruce things up a bit. I'll probably put a few more things. Just stay tuned. It's my birthday in a couple of months' time, and Tara, my wife, has apparently got me something very, very good that might sit at the back of me up here. But if you've got any other suggestions, I have, you can't see it, of course, but I've tried to upgrade the studio, Jules, and make it professional. I've got professional lights on me at the moment. So not just a little ring light. I've got proper stand-up lights on me. You can probably see, can you see there? The little bit of a fluoro at the back there. You can't see, but it's a pretty good setup anyway, mate. But give me some other tips if you want me to spruce up the studio a little bit more. Dave agrees on Hearns. Thanks, Dave. I don't normally get a lot of backers when I say that about Tommy. Tommy was beating the great Sugar Ray until the final round, while the 14th round, that's why they were 15-round fights though, Batman, and Sugar Ray got the job done. Hearns couldn't hurt Leonard. Didn't have the fortitude, whatever you might want to call it, the ability to hang with Leonard for the full 15 rounds. Of course, it had been a 12-round fight, would have been a different story. And look, I will say the rematch they fought at 168, I think it was, Thomas Hearns won that fight. Dropped Sugar Ray twice. He won that fight, and I feel so sorry for him that he didn't get his chance at redemption. Do you think the Garcia result, despite the positive test missing weight, has ruined Haney's legacy and status as pound for pound? Yeah, well, he's out of my pound for pound, mate. I thought it was a pretty poor performance from Haney, not worthy of a top 10 pound for pound fighter. And if you're in the top 10 pound for pound, you should be winning those fights. I like this. We've turned into a dream fight stream at the moment. We'll go for about another 10 minutes, guys. Chock shouldn't have tried to shrink down chasing that Mayweather fight. Wasn't good for his health. Should have stayed at super middleweight, as was competitive there. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Andy. I couldn't understand maybe going down to 160, but going all the way down to 154, it just hindered him. Those last few fights of his career, getting dropped multiple times. He just looked frail. Yeah, not good. When he was at 168, he was a very, very good fighter. He certainly was, and a true top-tier 168-pounder. And we all remember when he fought Danny Green that first time. Absolutely made Danny look silly. He really did. Totally outclassed him. I thought won 10, if not 11 of the 12 rounds. So that's the Chock I remember. And of course, the Antoine Eccles fight. So, yeah, he should have stayed at 168. 15th round also, it's cool. Either way, always appreciate hearing your insight and opinions. Thanks, Batman. Well, that's what it's all about, mate. I certainly don't come on here proclaiming to know everything. It's just my opinion. I hope I give you a platform to have your say as well. And again, mate, it's always just me just saying it the way I see it, but I'm certainly not going to disagree with you out there either. So Hitman deserved the W in the second fight. Yep. I think Ennis hurts all them guys moving up. He's just a different beast, I believe. Still needs to step up in competition. Yeah, I agree there, mate. No doubt even Sugar Ray said it himself. Yeah, he did. That's a credit to Sugar Ray, isn't it? He did admit that Hearns won that second fight. Still hurts him badly at levels. Yep. That's about mundane. Phoenix said years ago that Tim was ready to get him with Canelo. I thought it was a way too early call, but based on Mungui's performance, how do you see Tim faring if he jumped up? Not good, Jules. I'm not sure whether Tim, 168's a big jump, going from 154 to 168. We saw that with Charlo, and Charlo's a very, very skillful fighter. Let's not forget that probably before, or probably after the Castano fight, he was pound for pound top 10. Then of course went a little bit sour for him after that, and he couldn't barely lay a glove on Canelo. Not that he probably tried. Tim would certainly turn up to fight, but I've got to probably stick still with Canelo there, Jules, at 168. I think he would give Canelo something to think about, but the experience and the weight and the strength and everything for Canelo, I just think would be a bit too much for Tim at this stage. Zero chance Haney beats Boots. Boots embarrasses Haney. Okay, Boots still yet to see the best of Boots. Well, that's Bardo. That's what I want to see, mate. That's what I want to see. I want to see him fight the Haneys and embarrass him if that's what you think. That's fine. But as I said, I just think Haney gives him the better fight out of really anyone. But whether he goes up in weight's another story. But I'm with you. I think Boots Ennis is the real deal. But how can we rate him or know for sure until he actually has a legacy fight? We just don't know. What's that there, Jules? Let's get past Virgil first, brother. Yeah. Prime Mundine was amazing. Certainly was, mate. Very underrated fighter again, he was. I think he was written off a lot, especially early in his career because of the football background. But I think by the end of it, he had that universal respect and recognition from all, not just fight fans, but sporting fans. Cambos is a massive chance. Let's get behind Little Warrior. Thanks, Peter. I agree with you there, mate. Let's go. Come on, Batman. You obviously haven't seen Costa in camp with Tim in Thailand. Nothing surer. What was that about, Batman? Sorry, I'll let you guys discuss that. Do you think Maxi beat Cambosis? I've got to say yes, Billy. I was actually at that fight. I was there in Oklahoma, and I thought George was very, very lucky to get that. But having said that, I'm not basing that fight on his chances against Lomachenko. The only thing that Maxi Hughes has in common with Lomachenko is the fact that both southpaws, and I know a lot of people have used that as maybe a reason to say Lomachenko wins easy. But I just think George, as he showed against Lopez, will at least come motivated and ready to go like he was against Lopez. Will it be enough? Look, if I'm being honest, I doubt it, but I still think the fight is going to be a lot closer than what a lot of people think. I think George gets up for the fight. Who knows what Lomachenko's got left? Again, he's had, 20 fights in 11 years as a pro. Has not fought often. And he hasn't fought since, April last year. April or May was it last year? Whatever it was. So how much do we know that Lomachenko's got left? How much do we know, or how do we know that loss to Haney didn't completely rip his heart out and take away the drive and desire that he had? We just don't know. So, yes, I think the Maxi beat Cambosis last year. But again, I'll say it, I think George gives Lomachenko all he can handle on Sunday. Is it enough to win? Again, I don't think George beats Loma, but until these questions are answered, we just won't know. Okay, Peter, that's your call, mate. Okay, not amazing. Okay, well, that's your call, mate. That's all cool. Yes, Jules, I have. I think he beat Virgil. Is a brutal. This is Tim and Virgil, but Canelo is 168. Let's chill it on that. Yeah. We're going to need to get Fennec on to address things. He has been on a couple of times before, Jules. We had him last time he was on. We did the classic fights, the Zuma Nelson first fight. So check it out on YouTube there. We got him on. What we're doing when we had the other guys on, we did classic fights every week. And we picked a fight to go back and revisit and talk about and go over. And we actually had Jeff's fight with Zuma Nelson, the first one. And Jeff actually came on to give his take on the whole thing. So it was really good. And then Main Event stole my idea, and they then did a 5-fight series with Jeff after that of his biggest 5 fights of his career, and got him on there to discuss all his fights. So I'm taking credit for that. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, it's got a little bit to go. I'm not totally 100% happy with it yet, Andy, but yeah, I'll get it right in the end. I think it's better than a green screen, don't you? I was happy Costas turned up. Always wondered why he wasn't at the fights, because he's a bit of a psycho, apparently, Batman, according to Tim. I get the travel, but it'd still be great to see them back together, and who better to learn from, especially when didn't see the rest of the comment there. Tim is already at such a high level. I think what it comes down to, Batman, from what I've heard, is that they're very too much alike, and they just do this. And I don't blame Tim for saying, hey, I'll take on certain things. I think he did say they've bounced a few things off each other. Or Costas tried to implement some stuff, and Tim said, no, I think I like it this way. And got to remember, Tim's his own man now. I know he's not at the level yet of what Costa was, but still his own man, still a former world champion. So I think Tim loves to see his dad. I think from what I've seen, it's been great for him to catch up. But I think it would be better for both men, father and son, to keep the distance. And I especially know that Tim's not a rap for Costa coming to his fights, because he went to his first fight back in 2016 and carried on like an absolute psycho at ringside. So I don't think it went down well. And in a small little environment, someone jumping around and yelling. And we actually saw his sisters do the same thing last year. So stuff that you sold me, mate. I got a Loma KO round 10 and Shanika. I'll a good bet on it. Make it even more interesting. Yep, go for it, mate. No tips. Set up looking clean and professional. Keep things simple. Yeah, well, that's the show there, Jules. But as I said, I've got a couple of things I'll do in the background, and I think just at the back here, it's driving Tara crazy, and you can see a few gaps in the padding, because that's actually soundproof padding there. But as you can see here, there's a couple of gaps, and her OCD's kicked in. So you might see next week a few of the gaps fixed up. Leonard is different. Is a different animal to Crawford, though, to me. Yep, no, that's a good call there, mate. Gutler says, I remember watching Lionel Rose versus fighting Harada. Fantastic win in Japan. It was, mate. Also, the Gaddy Ward trilogy was fantastic. Gaddy rebooted, improved his style, strategy, and watching that fight, that growth was 10 out of 10. Yeah, yep. I could watch those fights over and over again. Andy says, I'll be cheering on for our boy Cambo, of course, but expecting Loma to outclass him. Hope I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm with you there, mate. I agree. A couple more minutes, guys, and we'll call it a night. Kambosos fought that Hughes fight like he had a lot to lose and nothing to gain. Yeah, I agree, Jules. He pretty much went through the motions, didn't he? Have to be honest, Kambosos' game and has some attributes, but Loma is going to beat him and make it look easy, I would think. Well, based on previous fights, maybe Batman, but as I said, how do we know how much Loma's got left? All right, I can imagine that Lacosta is a very disciplined guy, but so is Tim, so we can see the clear similarities in personalities. Yep. I think Loma is a better style matchup. Kambosos struggles with boxers who move a lot and won't exchange. Good call, Billy. I agree, mate. I think Mundine, says Bill, I think Mundine's speed, skill, footwork was very amazing. Sad he went too long. I think it's hurt him in legacy and damage. Mundine, Australia's best ever athlete, in my opinion. Yep, not going to argue with that, Bill. And the last comment here, guys, Tim's sister was getting heated at the Zoo versus Mendoza fight. Reminded me of my mum when I was an amateur. I love it. Well, that's good, Batman. I'm glad you're an amateur boxer back in the day. And what's that one more there? I was doing similar at my TV during the fight. Takes his soul. Yeah, it was. I was just over from her on the night. Look, I can't believe that everyone had a bit of a crack at her. She's his sister. Let her have her fun. And I just think it's sad that she hasn't been back since then, or it wasn't at his last couple of. No, it definitely was in Vegas, but I think didn't go to Nikita's fight either. So it's a little bit sad if that is the case. She doesn't go to the fights because of that anyway. So, all right, guys, we'll just to quickly recap. Let's go to, so we've got the Oz top 10 there. Nikita Tszyu 10, Paulo Acuso 9, Liam Wilson 8, Liam Paro 7, Andrew Maloney 6, Sam Goodman 5, George Kambosos Jr. 4, Jason Maloney 3, Tim Tszyu 2, Jai Opetaia 1. And as for the world ratings, we have Jesse Bam Rodriguez number 10, Junto Nakatani 9, Shakur Stevenson number 8, Tank Davis number 7, Arta Beterbiev number 6, 5 is Dmitry Bivol, 4 is Alexander Usyk, 3 is Canelo Alvarez, and number 2 is Naoya Inoue. And heading the list is Terence Crawford at number 1. So there it is, guys. Let me know your comments down below what you think of my list. Let's try and keep it clean. It's okay to have your own opinion and disagree, but don't sort of get in there and say none of us know what we're talking about. As I said, it's cool to have your own opinion, but be respectful. So till next week, I think of something else. I think we might go back to some dream fights next Wednesday night, guys, but I'll put it up on socials anyway when we get a little bit closer. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.